welcome back, everybody, to another episode of It Is Ma'am with Mel and Kay, whichever place she is. And today we have a guest. I've been wanting to have her on for a really, really long time, and I'm so excited because here she is, Amie Ichikawa.
Hello there.
Hello, and Amy's got her fingers in a few different piles. So I'm going to let Amie introduce herself to the audience. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I am Amie Ichikawa. I am a founding member and the director over at the teeny tiny nonprofit Woman to Woman. I'm formerly incarcerated and we work directly with women in prison. I'm also an ambassador for Independent Women's Forum. And that has been extremely helpful in getting the message out and up more so than ever. We do a lot of stuff, a lot more than you would think three people could do, but we do it. And we do it because we love our friends inside. And this is the craziest thing that I've ever seen happen in the world. I would have never guessed it was going to get this bad. But as soon as I saw that so many vulnerable sectors of society were being negatively impacted by this, I knew it was all connected. So that's how we got here.
And when you say this, you mean men in women's prisons.
Yes. Yes. And it's so much bigger than just that. It's the continued eugenics agenda in the prison system. It's the pushing of the wrong sex hormones on anybody who's even, slightly male presenting. You can't go see a mental health clinician if you're, a stud. They're going to tell you you're a man and you need to get on T. And it comes at them from every angle. There's no escaping any of this. It's in their faces constantly. It's just.
Let me ask you how much you know about what tea does to the body, because there's how everything like makes it through, and I'm sure we're all in the same algorithm. So, the video of the day made it up. So Ellen Page is up there again, and it's a video, and she's talking about something, probably indoctrinating children into her death cult. But she looks, if you don't listen to it, I mean, probably both ways, but
of Canadian music and devoted and tenacious change makers for a community we should all be fighting for. We are at a time in history where the rights of 2S LGBTQ+ people are being revoked, restricted, and eliminated throughout the world, and the effects of which are devastating.
You don't listen to it, it looks like she has really bad Parkinson's. And
Oh,
I
that's
pointed
right.
that out, and someone said, well, it's the tea. What do you know about its effects on the body? And I mean, gosh, how long has she even been on it? And this is like, she's like, and she looks, 100 years old.
Well, I know in the beginning, it really bumps your sex drive up, and there's that whole euphoric male pubescent period of time that you enter. I didn't like puberty the first time, so I can't imagine enjoying it for the wrong sex. I know it's really hard on your pancreas, on your liver. I think I watched something about a woman who'd been on TV for so long, not too long, but her pancreas wasn't processing anything correctly, and she was starving to death no matter how much she ate, because it would not process the calories correctly. Something was happening, and she was starving to death even while she was eating thousands of calories a day. I know that there are people that are having problems. There was someone in the prison who got their shot wrong. It hit him right in the sciatic nerve, and this is a teeny tiny person, was wheelchair bound for quite some time and not doing very well. But it's not a real awesome thing. And then when you mix that with narcotics, I think it does something else that's incredibly terrible too. And obviously people aren't getting fully informed when that happens, probably because the doctors don't expect people to have access to narcotics, but they know it's there and they know that people use, and they're still not giving them the full rundown of what's going to happen to their bodies. And it's terrible. But yeah, I also saw those seizures and the tremors and that stuff from the usage of tea too.
It's awful. So that I bring that up because, the big, people are saying let's just let it be okay for adults. And like Kay's pointed out in the past, it's really not okay. Like, since when would healthcare be like putting damaging, poisoning, whatever it is, hormones or whatever it is, into your body?
Does
When
anyone
it's
know kind of what the dosage is when a biological woman is put through that process of that regime of tea? Is it straight in with a full dose, or do they build up to something? Because the reason I ask is because of I replace testosterone because I have no ovaries, and the dose that I take is minuscule. It's 1/10 of what would be given to a biological male who was needing to boost his testosterone if it was lacking for whatever reason. And even then, I have to take serious breaks from it because I get, really severe pain in my jaw from constantly grinding my teeth. You develop hair straight away. That
Mm.
kind of little boy horny thing is very real, and that's from day one. You're constantly agitated because you just have the horn all the time. It's really irritating, actually. But I've never taken a higher dose than that to know about the really horrible stuff that can happen to the body. So yeah, what happens with that with dosage? Does anyone know?
I don't.
I have no idea. I have a very good friend who's in the middle of transitioning and is in prison. I'm still going to call her she because she's still a she right now. She said, well, she'll always be a she. Her dosage, she had to adjust several times because it was negatively impacting her, mental health. Her skin was getting really bad. She had beautiful skin, so that was problematic. And it seems like there's almost always another diagnosis that's going on there, and it creates even worse imbalances and makes people even more unstable. And I don't know, I can't even handle the hormones that are supposed to be in my body, so I don't know. I don't know how this is happening. This is great. Well, it's money. Everything is money, and if there's money involved, it's always going to be green lighted by somebody.
Yeah. Crazy unethical. So tell us about the work that you do with women in prison.
Well, the big focus for me is to encourage, empower, educate, or encourage, educate, and empower, because they're so downtrodden, they're so sad and beat down by everything that's going on, from the abuse from staff to having to cohabitate with intact male sex offenders. They feel worthless. So we have to build them up and make them understand that they're worth filing a complaint for. They're worth, ruining our chances of getting formal funding. They're worth all of that. So sending in postcards with, grounding techniques. My partner Liz designed this whole postcard campaign where there's little mental health tips that you can do when you're having non-emergency mental health issues. We design our own Christmas cards, things like that. Just recently, we actually they were able to see us on their tablets. They have state issued tablets. And because of the Fox News exposure, they were able to see a glimpse into some of the media attention that we're getting. I mean, it's quickly removed, but even when they try and censor it, there's still that little window. And then education, like, for example, I really wasn't familiar with misogyny. I didn't know I didn't understand. I couldn't have defined it. But once I learned, I was like mind blown, like, wow, it's not just my life that sucks. They hate all of us. Okay. And I feel like once you can give a name to the monster, it really helps to get past it and be able to develop tools to defend yourself against it. So we'll send in messages about Darvo and gaslighting, all those kind of things. And on the institutional level, how it happens. So I think the education is a really great form of encouragement, because they can move forward once they understand that there's this problem exists, and there's a lot of women that are working on solutions to this, and it's going to be for you too. But right now, my big thing is really lawyers. We're looking for lawyers. There's a couple of women who've actually filed Prison Rape Elimination Act complaints, which is huge because most women have been too afraid to file anything, to complain about anything because of the retaliation. And like that just happened this morning, as a matter of fact. This is why women don't report. So when they do, I really feel like I need to prioritize taking care of them and making sure they get a team that can defend them, because once one gets a lawyer and that lawsuit gets established, it'll encourage other women to start coming forward and pushing the issue as well, because that's the only way we're really going to get it to stop.
Wow.
That's just on Mondays.
Do you only work with like a local prison? Do you work with all California prisons? Is this nationwide?
Well, there's only 2 women's prisons in California, so we do work with the whole population in both of those prisons. And we actually work with women in other states, Texas, Minnesota, New York. There's been opportunities that have come up, and I'm not gonna say no, I can't help you. And I do take on a lot more than we can handle sometimes, but I cannot say no. There's
Are
some
those all the prisons that have men in them?
well, actually, almost all of them do, I think, because
Holy
the federal law. It's a
How long
it's
has
a
that been
federal.
going on for?
In the feds, I think actually longer than it has been in state prisons. I don't know the exact date, but it's been a while where there have to be considerations of trans-identified people's feelings and sense of well-being that has to be calculated in their placement. And same in the women's prisons, in the state women's prisons, there's always been a policy where they did a case by case type of thing. There's always been a couple of trans women here and there, but it was specifically for their safety because there was an incident that caused them to be so unsafe in the men's prison that they felt that they had to transfer them to the women's prison. And that those situations were far and few between. But now there's just no guardrails at all, and it's anything goes, literally. There are no requirements other than self-ID. So you don't have to wear pigtails or lipstick or anything. You can just, it's all based on feeling. And that's really crazy in a carceral setting because you can't prioritize somebody's feelings over the entire population's safety and well-being. That's ludicrous.
Sorry, what are the responses like from women who are already in prison and then they're having biological males that are transitioning or, ideas of trans women moved into their facilities? How is that? How are they responding to that?
A lot of the women are they've been conditioned to think that they have to absolutely be nice. And if they're not a welcome wagon, that they're bad, they're transphobic, they're horrible, and they're already, overwhelmed with having to mentally try and make up for, the things that happened to get them there in the first place. So there was a really strong attempt in the beginning to make this work. There's still people who are like, well, this one is a true trans person, and this one is okay. And I understand, but I do try and remind them there has to be a loser in every game, and you guys have been losers long enough. So it's either win or die at this point. The first response when the first busload of transfers came in was shock and horror, because these were, very large, fully tattooed people that just look like regular men off of a men's yard. There was one person that the cops had kept in administrative segregation because they couldn't figure out what he was doing there. Even the staff was confused, like, well, what is this person doing here? This is not, it's not who anybody would think is a trans-identified man. Like, it's not Orange is the New Black. It's not, some poor trans woman who just wants to get her hormones. These are big dudes. 33.8% of them in California who have attempted to transfer are registered sex offenders. So That in comparison to the 17% in the men's regular population, that's a huge jump. So a large sector of these people are sex offenders with nefarious intentions, and nobody's paying attention to that. The authors of the bill are denying that. No, I'm not saying that all trans people are sex offenders at all. I'm saying there's a large percentage that are trying to transfer under the trans umbrella, and that's just a fact. The women were promised that there were going to be guardrails, that there was going to be a stringent process in which they would review the people and make sure there were no people with histories of violence against women or sex crimes. And that's exactly who they sent over. Exactly.
Yeah, every time it shows up in the feed, it's always a rapist who's just decided they're a woman all of a sudden now that they're caught as a rapist. And naturally, where they belong then is in a women's prison, so they can just keep raping. It's like, it's so insane. And obviously, this has been going on for as long as Orange is the New Black debuted, so at least a decade more. It's insane that this has just flown under the radar for so long.
Well, I mean, this isn't a sector of the population that most people are concerned about. So they knew that if they started here and completed the project in the prison, which was going to be the easiest ground zero to have, then it would be that much easier to use that as the control subject when it's time to transfer the project to the free world. Then the laws will already be passed in the carceral setting. So you can use those in the lawsuits you're going to file in the free world, and you will have already developed or gained control of the judicial system with the laws that you built in the prison that nobody pays attention to. So that's where a lot of this kind of weird stuff starts, in the prison system. That's where the medical testing starts, all of it, because nobody has historically paid attention to what happens to women. They just get to prison and they're forgotten for the most part.
Freaking brutal. So here in California, how many men are in women's prisons?
Right now, I think there's 44. Recently, the Department of Corrections gave them the option to have a new state ID number issued because of the stigma that came with their old WB numbers. Their state ID numbers started with WB, and now they're, giving them new ones, which is completely unheard of. Nobody gets to change their number because it's hurting their feelings, but that way it's really a lot harder to track. You used to be able to go in the system and just type in WB, and then it would give you the whole list of everyone who has that number. And now you can't. You have to have someone's full, complete information in order to look up their whereabouts or their status. I'm sure.
What does WB stand for?
It's just a random well, it's not random, it's in chronological order. Like for example, I was in X number, so they've already gone through XYZ, and then I guess the rest of the alphabet, and they started on then they gave them the WB numbers. Now they're mixed up.
You see. And then of course they're going to mess up any statistics that are being collected in the prison for crimes, because now they're being completely, there's no clarification that it's a trans woman.
Correct. And I mean, all statistics are screwed up now. The population reports are completely irrelevant because it is based on someone's self-declared identity as opposed to reality. So it shows there's like 200 women in San Quentin and like 228 men in Central California Women's Facility, and there's not, but there are trans men who chose to change their identity and their gender marker to male. So the statistics are all completely worthless because they mean nothing.
Well, I was going to say, and then of course, someone will come across the fake statistics and try to argue with someone like me who's like, oh no, I just had someone on the show. And they're like, well, I saw the statistic. And it's like, oh my fucking God, because they don't believe. Yeah.
It's so frustrating for people to see the reports. This just happened to us, as a matter of fact. Somebody was reading a report, and you have two people with lived experience right in front of you that are telling you the opposite of what the report is, but the report is held with such high revere. So I guess we're just going to have to start publishing some reports of our own so that our stuff can be taken more seriously. Because the reports that are published in regards to stuff that's occurring in women's prison are always by organizations that fully supported this stuff, that you know, have a Marxist agenda, and they're all for this, but they do it in the shadows, so they go unnoticed. But I'm paying attention very closely.
Mhm.
Of these 44 men that are in prison with women at the moment, I know you won't be able to go into specifics about, you know, individuals, but are you in contact with women who have been suffering as a result of sharing space with these men? Yeah, are we seeing violence perpetrated towards women in these spaces?
Violence, but what's the most disturbing thing to me is the psychological warfare aspect of this. These people are trained master manipulators that know how to, you know, basically rape you without ever laying a finger on you. And these are the same individuals who have pretty much, you know, waged war against me as well, because I'm the only thing standing between them and, you know, a lifetime in prison land. So the same person who said that I need to be identified, purged, and replaced uh, just gives so many women the worst vibe. There's one woman who violently shakes and can't talk when she's around this person. And when I ran into this person, I totally understood, because I went on grounds last year with my team for a special event. And I don't know how in the world it happened, but this person timed it so perfectly that as soon as I stepped onto the main yard, they were waiting for me to come out of the facility yard on to the area where the event was taking place. And then another one who absolutely hates my guts came out. I was like, wow, these guys are coordinated. This is really impressive and scary. And they're like over 6 feet tall. Even if they're old, their presence is still very heavy and oppressive. One of them, you know, watches women in the shower. I've been getting messages about that one since the very first day he set foot in the prison. About he sits in front of the toilet to watch us pee. And there's certain areas nobody wants to live in the room, because these are 8-person cells. It's the 8-man cells. So there's 4 bunk beds. And one of them is called the freeway. The one area, it's right in the middle of everything. Nobody wants that area. This person wants that area because it's right in front of the toilet. So that was, you know, incredibly disgusting to me. And it, you know, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. I'm just thinking about the other things, or people who decide to have consensual sex. It's not like there's honeymoon suites in the prison, you know, there are not, you know, lovers' quarters or anything. So whether you want to participate in this or not, you are going to. People will have sex anywhere. So if they're having sex on the table that's next to the shower while you're taking a shower, what are you going to do? You're being forced to have this completely invade your space, invade the air you breathe, everything.
Can I ask about contraceptives and how women are affected in that regard? Because we talked with Amanda a few months ago. She's a woman who shared space with men in prison in Scotland. And she described that she's a mother, she's a family woman, and has completed her family before she was incarcerated for a few weeks. And she was forced to, for the first time in her life, have a coil fitted because she was so afraid of being impregnated by this ginormous man that she shared spaces with. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, as soon as the transfer started, posters went up in the medical units that listed the options for inmates that can become pregnant. Should they become pregnant, here's your options. And number 1 was a Plan B pill. Number 2 is an abortion. And then the process to adopt out would be the third option. Recently, well, actually 2 years ago, the small prison in Southern California installed condom dispensers in the med lines. And they were quickly taken down I actually have the memo notes from that meeting. Staff said, we were ordered by someone higher than the warden to take them down. So they were removed. But recently on Super Bowl Sunday, the large prison up north installed condom dispensers in every single day room in the prison. And it's been a law since 2013 in the state of California to have condoms available in every prison, but it never made sense to make them readily available in the women's prison because women don't have penises. So what's the point? But
They make
now,
female condoms. Are they not providing those for the women?
oh, actually, no, they did when they installed dental dam dispensers as well when they did the condoms. I'm assuming that it's a little bit less shocking and appalling now that they're providing both. But women have been in that prison since it opened, so why wouldn't they have provided those dental dams then? And this is, I mean, I can't imagine how much harder do you have to slap him in the face with this. I'm sure this is to also try and curb the
Oh God.
inevitable.
I just thought of Little Red Riding Hood. It's like all the better to rape you with, my dear. Like it's so fucking dark.
Right. And then to make it worse, there's a lot of lawsuits being filed right now against staff sexual misconduct. So the women for years and years and years have been subjected to this horrible abuse of power from staff. There's one lawsuit with 144 plaintiffs against like 500 cops. So, and then there's the one officer that was arrested for 96 counts of rape and sodomy. So this on top of having to live with these people, invade your space and wear your skin, you're just going to put these condoms in there. And I know that this is to try and prevent the inevitable AIDS epidemic that's going to come because of the transfers. There's prevalent in men's prison. Now they're not containing it. They're just spreading it around, which leads me to believe it's intentional. This is their California eugenics agenda. They just want to get rid of the undesirables, and that would be us.
Gosh dang. I want to ask you something because we still haven't dove into, I mentioned Jennifer Billick. I tell people, go look at her work, but we haven't gotten into any of that because of the nature of it and how it sounds. And like, we're taking our budding turf audience on a journey, and we don't really feel they're there yet. And we also haven't gotten into the Marxist utopia agenda. So you mentioned the Marxist agenda, and I would like you to just sort of talk about that a little bit. And I'm sorry to lay that on you. I should have Carlin on or something, but she scares me, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is a very it's a very controversial topic, but it's undeniable. I had a former, very high up employee in the Division of Adult Parole tell me dead ass to my face that everything you ever thought was true, it's a Marxist agenda. He said towards the end of his career, he was getting into it with his direct supervisor and, about all the corruption going on in the department. And the guy told him, look, I'm a trained, educated Marxist. And he said, I almost, like, my blood ran cold. And I was like, I knew it. And he said, this is commonplace in the ranks all the way up to the very top in the state departments. And now putting things together and having that in the forefront of my mind, I know, yes, it's happening all the way down to the grassroots level because they've been completely infiltrated. The organizations have all been infiltrated. They're pushing very un-American, very restorative, not friendly kind of things. And I don't think they all really understand or even know.
No, it's happening on the college campuses, and those kids have nothing to compare it to. And
Right.
all of the World War II guys, like my grandpa, are dead, which is a real fucking travesty right now because we need them, and they're dead.
And the ones
Keep
who
going. Sorry.
weren't too old, I mean, they did their best to kill off with COVID, and because they knew that the last great generation was not going to put up with this. And they were, I mean, those are badass heroes, you know what I mean? And they would have been the only people who would have told their grandchildren, like, look, Billy, your name is not Susan. Knock it
Yeah,
off.
you know, it's funny you should talk about the Cherie episode, because she was like, I'm glad that my dad would have not stood for this. My grandfather, like,
Mhm.
not for a second. No
Right.
way.
No, not at all. And like I'm looking at a picture of my grandma right now, and she would have just split her wig to think she's a registered nurse practitioner. She would have flipped out at the thought of this. And then, you know, my grandpa was like both of my grandpas were big Nazi killers. And now here we are in 2024, and I'm being accused of being a Nazi.
And look at you.
You know, the
By
everything is
blind
up
people, or like who's
by my peers. So
No, I know.
even the organizations that are run by people I went to prison with have said things like that. So it's coming from all directions. But even the work that I do is for them too, because whether they know it or not, this is for everybody. I'm trying to build a place and create a community that we can all sit at the table and everybody can have a living wage, and you're not going to have to sell out your own people in order to take care of your home and your family.
Like, that's funny, because I was going to say, you know, you said they're trying to get rid of all the undesirables. And it's like, well, if people could afford to live, maybe they wouldn't be so fucked up.
Mhm. Right. Or
Maybe.
if, yeah, but it's a machine. It's a machine. It's designed for you to fail. Like when you come out, normally the organizations are going to help you get on all the social aid, all the you know, here, get on the Section 8 waiting list and all this and that. And I don't want to do that. I want to help people get the tools they need to be independent from the state, and not be dependent on them for anything. I don't want to depend on the place that destroyed us for sustenance for the rest of my life. I want to distance myself from this. But this is the way it works. They're all in bed. It's circular spending. It's embezzlement. It's crazy. The amount of money that goes into this, everybody should have a house and a car when they come out, because if you're just going to have $600 million be distributed amongst, you know, the NGOs and have no records or statistics to show the efficacy of their programming, it's nuts. It's so irresponsible. But I guess I can handle that on Friday.
uh, I wrote down narcissists for some reason, because you were talking about something about the men that are in prison, but I didn't make enough of a note to know what the hell I was talking about. But yeah, anyway.
They are super narcissists. And, you know, there's people that have, like, there's women who've pointed out so many incredible, interesting things over the last year and a half, 2 years about, and provided insight into what's going on in there. There's one person who she said that one of the more well-known trans-identified people decided that they were a man again, and painted their eyebrows on like Groucho Marx, and came out like, I'm a man again. And I said, well, they don't, I mean, there's no process if you decide to, like, if you're gender fluid or something, if you decide to switch up, there's no, like, you don't get returned. No. So basically right now they've turned this into men's prison and anyone else's prison. That's what we have right now. Men and other kind of men. There's just no consideration of women involved in this. And the way the laws are written, it's very clear that this was done without any consideration to women whatsoever, because it's the way it's written, they're untouchable. You can't penalize them for anything. You can't tell them no. If you tell them no, they can grieve the no, and you have to submit in writing to them a detailed explanation of why they were told no. And it can't be based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, genitals, anything like that. So any reason that would seem normal, you can't use. And no one
Well,
is
what
going to
about their
stop
status as a
and
sexual predator, you know, as a rapist?
right, right, and
What
that
about that?
they're taken into great consideration. But nobody has their own sense of well-being or safety taken into consideration except for the small privilege group now. That's never ever happened. These are not rights that are being reinstalled, given back to them. Nobody has those rights. So when this is being advertised, I'm like, wait a minute. Nobody has respect, agency, or dignity in prison. Agency is really the first thing you lose. You don't have bodily autonomy anymore. You are a piece of state property. So why would you even think that? Or respect? No, you don't get that. But now that this small teeny group has that, obviously we're going to have a humongous power imbalance. And look at historically what's happened when a small group of people have privileges and power. uh, it's problematic. It's wartime.
I'm sitting here thinking like, I don't know why one of them doesn't just decide like, I identify as the prison warden. Now get your bitch ass out of the seat. I don't know why this person's gay, but get your bitch ass out of the seat.
Well, and you know what is it? That made me think of the another issue. The trans women that are in men's prison, which is the majority of them, want nothing to do with this and are not trying to transfer at all. And they're concerned that there's going to be an effort to try and consolidate them into one area. They don't want to move. They're perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone in the men's prison the other day, and they said, I'm on the main line in a level 3 yard. If somebody were to run up to me and rape me, we would have a serious problem. This isn't like the movies. We don't know who's telling the senators this or what's going on, but we're fine. It's not like that. There's a lot of domestic violence that happens, but that's not transphobia. That's a couple. And there was even one trans woman who was so uncomfortable in women's prison because of how much the women's requests or cries for help are ignored, that they transferred back to the men's prison. This is a post-op trans. I mean, there's plenty of people that are post-op in the men's prison, and it's not a problem.
Interesting. Where's their interview? I want to see
Right?
them talk, right?
And I mean, and this is somebody that got a lot of love from the women because I think in some situations that was the only thing that was standing between the full takeover of a certain yard was this person being there. And this person knew all the key players and the people who were trying to do the hostile takeover. And we know that's what it is. They went with the intention to take over. This wasn't to assimilate, this was to take over. I actually should make a note to write this person. It's been a while, but they're on board. They are not happy with this. There's just a few cherry-picked individuals that have been, groomed, who are pushed to the forefront, who are publicized a lot, who there's freedom campaigns for, but that they don't represent the majority at all.
Are there any trans identifying females who start this transition process within prison who are requesting to be moved to male prisons? Is that a thing?
There have been a couple. As far as I know, there's been one to successfully transfer. Only had about 3 months left to serve, but had no real problems. As a matter of fact, the people that I talked to in the prison that they transferred into were like, "Oh, I saw the little guy today." I said, "Really? Yes, we had dinner together." And I was like, "Oh, that's great. So what was the problem? How come we're not sending people who are feeling unsafe and are gender fluid over there where they're running a good program, where it should be the model for how the unit should look with individuals who identify as anything other than, what they are by choice, instead of disrupting the entire women's population and endangering them." But that probably makes too much sense. But they do make it more difficult for them to transfer. I just got a message from a trans man in the smaller prison who said, they make it really hard for us to do anything. But if it's a trans woman, then, you know, the red carpet gets rolled out and they get whatever they want. And it was so hard for me not to say, I know, because this is a man's world and this is a men's rights movement. But, you know, I want to be gentle and, you know, ease them into reality. I don't want to scare them away. So I'm going easy on that one. But, you know, trans men get no perks, no benefits out of this because, you know, they're women too. So this is against all women, old, tall, short, fat, ones that think they're boys, all of us.
Yeah, agreed. You said something happened this morning. What happened this morning?
I got a message. I knew it was important because somebody who in the free world texted me and said, check your messages. They just called me, told me to tell you to check your messages. And I logged into my inmate messaging app, and they said that something happened. A woman who's got a life sentence had a legal visit. She had a visit with a lawyer to talk about an incident that happened inside. And that night, the cops tore her room up. They went in and did an extensive search, which was clearly retaliatory. And this is exactly why women don't report, because when you have nothing, your room means everything to you. That's your safe place. That's your house. And there are little things that you're able to hang on to, like your striped pajamas that you can't have anymore that are going to get confiscated, or your tie-dyed sheets, or, you know, your extra anything, or the hot plate that you stole and made from, you know, the dryer elements so you can fry food. Those kind of things that make you happy are like treasures. So to get your room tore up is so horrible. So they said, make sure you check in with this person to see what's going on. And so we're gonna have to wait for confirmation and then contact the ombudsman and go through that whole order. Luckily, there are some individuals that work there that are very sympathetic, who have been helpful. There's not very many of them, but they're there.
You mentioned that you'll take care of that on Friday. What's happening Friday?
No, I was just thinking, there's so many things to do. I'll just do that on Friday. But
I see.
it's not so much Friday, but I think I am gonna have to go to the Capitol, I think next week, because I have to go talk to these legislators to their face. It's time for me to show some face and give them firsthand accounts of what's going on. I'm even gonna see if I can schedule phone calls so that women can just call in while I'm in front of certain, you know, elected officials' faces, so they can talk to them directly, because they're not listening to anything else. You know, I think some of them are starting to show an openness to explore other options than what's currently happening, which is miraculous. And I'm super thankful and excited about that. I just need to have very solid plans to deliver, because they're not going to think of anything themselves. So we have to create the alternatives and deliver these so that we're not just coming with a complaint. I really want to present them with a complaint and a solution that takes everybody's safety and well-being into consideration, because I you know, took a long time to get here, but this isn't good for the sex offenders either. If they want to be really sympathetic on that side, they can't rehabilitate or heal from whatever trauma got them to where they're at if they're in a state of criminal thinking. Nobody's winning with this. So I've you know, grown and had some quiet time to adjust, because at first I was really just pissed. I was so angry and emotionally charged. I was just yelling and angry. But now I have to be far more tactical and think about how this is going to affect every single person. And remedying this will benefit everybody. They have no argument. Well, I'm sure they will, but you know.
Well, I was going to say, you know, a lot of people with the sports are like, you know, third category, and they don't want a third category. So, you know, with the
No,
prison thing, it's like third space. They don't want a third space. They want to
no.
invade women's space. I was just explaining this to my coworker the other day. You know how you peak slowly every day with a new story.
Yeah,
That was
this is
this
always
week.
a good one. This is always a good one because people are real quick to say that's not happening. Oh, but it is. I mean, look, these condoms are from the freaking prison. And it is about taking over the women's space though. It's so much is they don't want the third space. And that's an issue that I'm having with devising a plan, because if I make a plan to reactivate one of the closed prisons and have it, it's going to be empty because nobody wants to go there. Nobody. The reason
Right.
why they're transferring is because they want to go to women's prison.
How do you get around them? I mean, this is a question for the lawyers, obviously, but how do you get around them claiming it's discrimination?
It's very difficult because the Prison Rape Elimination Act makes them a protected class, and it also states you cannot segregate people based on gender, sexual orientation, whatever. But the pitch that I'm making is not segregation, but separation for medical purposes. So maybe if we base this on medical requirements, it would be more feasible. Otherwise, it's going to be deemed segregation. Because there have been people that suggested, oh, just have a unit or a wing for them, but that's not what they want, and that's not that it can't happen because that would be highly discriminatory according to, you know, federal law.
Isn't it crazy? We're having this conversation like we understand these things. Like
You,
we understand, like we're not going to get
mhm,
sanity or what needs to happen. So we'll come up with
Yeah.
some other fucking solution, I guess.
mhm. It's exhausting, but I mean the hoops that we've got to jump through or they just keep getting bigger and bigger, but that's all right. Can't stop at this point. Even if I wanted to, I could not. Um, and I know this isn't just for the prison population. This is going to affect everybody because we have to stop it here at the root, and then it'll have its trickle down. But it has to be stopped in there because people are not going to be able to handle out here what's going on in there. It's not cool. The prioritization of predators and this whole trans supremacy thing is off the chain. I mean, the women that have to get denied for medical services constantly because they're deemed cosmetic. Like if your tooth, if it's not your front tooth, it's cosmetic. So they just have to pull it. If you have triple F cups, you can't necessarily get a breast reduction because it's cosmetic. But if you would like laser hair removal, breast implants, or, you know, a facelift and a trach shave, that's fine because it's life-saving.
Like a weekend in Beverly Hills. If
Yes.
that's your aim and you have a penis or you used to have one and you
Yes.
like to rape people, we can hook you up with like the full Kardashian.
Mm-hmm. And there's no limit. There's no limit because it's based on the inmate client or inmate patient relationship with their care provider. So whatever they deem necessary is limitless. So that's why this has to stop, because to what end? Are we going to not say anything when people want tails and you know, cat ears? There has to be a definitive ending to this. There has to be something. You've got to fit into some kind of bubble, or else it's going to be complete chaos. I don't know. Somebody just got approved for hip and butt implants. So I mean, we have to put a limit to this. This is our state is how big is the deficit? 70 zillion bazillion dollars.
That's the exact number.
Yeah. So this is very frivolous spending on not life-saving procedures. Nobody ever died from having a penis or a vagina. Nobody.
I can't actually believe what I'm hearing. This is off the hook insane. And it's like we run the risk if we don't start waking, you know, alerting people to this, showing them this is happening, stop ignoring it. We and everyone like us who has this awareness, you know, we cannot start getting complacent. You know, your drive to do this, like you said earlier, I will stop at nothing now. You know, you just have to keep going with this momentum, and let it pick up, because if we don't have people like you, we are completely and utterly fucked. You know, these women are completely screwed. This is the first time I've gotten quite emotional listening to someone, you know, talking on the show, since we caught up with Amanda last year. For some reason, this topic really, really gets to me, you know. So please, like, after we're done with recording, just let me know what I can possibly do to help get the message out even further for you, you know,
Well,
because
this is
I
it.
can't believe what I'm hearing.
Most people can't. They think I'm crazy, but now that they see me on the news more often, they're like, "Oh, this is bad, huh?" I mean, the way you responded, this is how I thought everyone would respond. I thought everyone was going to be disturbed and emotionally distraught, like I am, but it
You
hasn't.
know, I
hasn't
was talking to someone about the Amanda episode and they interrupted me and said, well, what was she in for? And I'm like, you know what? I didn't fucking
Mhm.
ask her because it wasn't
Yeah,
relevant. Kay probably lost her
that's
signal. Maybe she'll pop back in.
and that's what I say to people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what crime a woman committed or anyone committed. You can't further subject them to additional cruel and unusual punishments they didn't sign. They were not sentenced to this. No woman in the country was sentenced to do her time in a co-ed prison. That's another idea. Like maybe everybody should file for resentencing because you weren't sentenced to this. Um,
ah,
weigh the courts down, make them do their jobs, make them
mhm.
really mad, you know. But it doesn't matter. There's so many people that ask that all the time. What did she do? Well, because she'll think twice before you go back to prison. No, no, buddy. I really hope that, you know, your wife or your mom or you never run into any things that would make you make a really horrible mistake that would lead you to prison because you wouldn't survive. So even for the naysayers like that, I keep going.
You know, it's amazing that since Megyn Kelly, and I've probably said this on the show 3 times now, but since Megyn Kelly's peaked and had Jennifer on, and then every episode she talks about this, I cannot believe none of her peers have come out. You just gonna let Megyn take all these scoops, first of all?
Right.
She's doing the show I would love to do if I, had producers and money. She's like
Man,
literally every day I'm like, this is gonna be a great episode. I can't wait to see it.
I can't believe that happened. That's so crazy. I was like, really? And she was very upset too. I think her shock and disappointment at the treatment of incarcerated women was genuine. And I I don't know. Nobody wants to talk about it. I would love to see the mainstream media be even slightly interested in this, but it just goes against the narrative right now.
Yeah.
Um, they don't want to have any negative media associated with this community, and I'm sorry, but it's gonna have to happen. uh, it's billboard time or skywriter. I'm gonna do
That's what we're
something.
here for.
And this is
Sound the
good.
alarm.
This is very
Uh,
important. This is what's gonna, these awkward weird conversations about this topic are what are gonna raise awareness and get more people to contact their legislators and vote differently and start caring about the least of us, because how we treat the least of us is very significant in how the rest of us are going to be treated.
Absolutely.
Um,
Amie, thank you so much for coming. You know your stuff. I definitely want to stay in touch. First of all, what part of Southern California are you in?
I'm in Torrance.
How far is that from LA?
Oh, it's LA County.
Nice. All right, we're close. We're gonna have lunch soon.
Yay! Yeah, there. Yes, yeah. I don't get to hang out with a lot of people. I am, uh, yeah, so that would be
It's
wonderful.
Yeah, that would be great. Is to tell the audience anything you want to tell them before we go about what you're doing, what you're up to, how they can help.
Please visit, our website at womaniiwoman.org to stay, up to date on what we're doing, messages from the inside, how you can donate. We always need postage stamps because we have a lot of mail. There's a lot of
Okay.
mail It's very, very important. And stamps are so expensive now. So, you know, you might think that's a small ask, but it's not. It's kind of pricey. So just know when we ask for stamps, we could really use stamps. But other than that, just, you know, hopes and prayers and uncomfortable conversations are what is going to get this fixed. So just talk about it, because every time you talk about it, it's like you're restoring a voice for one of the most silent sectors of womankind that we have.
Thank you. That's a great way to wrap it up. So wonderful to have you here. Appreciate you. And yeah, like I said, we'll stay in touch. I'm gonna stop recording for now, but bye-bye, everybody.
It is man.